Hello and welcome to my contemporary music maker project. For this project, I decided to create a soundtrack to a film in collaboration with a film student. The initial idea was to create a dark, twisted drama about a news reporter who kills a celebrity in order to have a story to report, because if he didn't have a story, he would be fired. The filmmaker wanted more mysterious soundtrack with anger and sadness as the themes, and obviously he wanted me to compose a news theme as well. An important theme to represent, which was discussed, was pressure. Because the reporter only has 24 hours to report a story, or he loses his job, I found that it was incredibly important to incorporate the countdown in some shape or form in the music. For the second piece I produced, my partner wanted to make the most amount of pressure, and we wanted the music to communicate how the character is feeling as he's about to kill this celebrity, without actually saying it. It's an incredibly melancholic piece, but we discussed the metaphor of a ticking clock and time ticking away, representing the pressure being added as the day goes by and as that deadline gets closer. So although the chords are incredibly slow and sad, we feel that pressure coming in from the ticking clock that's hanging over him that I've decided to play over the piece. In the news theme, I used a lot of ascending melodies and ascending chords in order to make it more positive. Well, in this piece, I used a descending chord sequence in order to really build that depression and that sadness inside. So the first example of this was I used piano with lots of minor chords as the main chord sequence. So lots of reverb once again to fill out the space, but also because I wanted to build a feeling of isolation. I use lots of reverb on all of my instruments because I want to make the space seem huge, so that when you see one character, it truly isolates them and makes them feel more alone than they actually are. Now, in this one, because it's the main theme, I decided to incorporate the use of time. And to do that, I wanted to create the sound of a ticking clock. In order to do this, I used a metronome and screen recorded it, and I took that sound and added loads of delay and loads of reverb. And I used the 1 and 2 beat and repeated that because it's got that tick-tock sound that you really want when creating a clock noise. And I added loads of reverb to this once again, just because I want it to feel like they're truly isolated and it's constantly in their head. And then I had a second metronome with loads of delay to make the audience feel isolated and alone in a large space. So it kind of gives me that image of like walking down a street alone in the middle of the night, like you just feel completely alone, and it kind of really builds that effect. Next, I add loads of strings just to build the tension. There's loads of pizzicato strings going really fast just to build the tension and make the killer feel more under pressure to do this murder so that he can have this story and keep his job. So it really builds the tension and really makes it seem a lot more anxious. And finally, I did have some airways, which is a synthesizer, once again just to fill out the space and add some atmosphere. And it's a drone, so it's one single chord going throughout the entire piece. Just to really give that theme of loneliness throughout the entire piece. For this third and final piece, my partner and I discussed the importance and key theme of sadness. At this point in the film, he was being put down by his boss about the lack of story, and we needed to make the main character feel incredibly depressed. But my partner also wanted a hint of anxiety and pressure coming from the deadline that's hanging over him. And so in order to do this, I had to make the song fast-paced, but also feeling very sad. We didn't want the audience to feel any hope at all, so I used minor chords with a minor melody. However, with the main chord progression, I used really low notes with a contrasting super high melody, just to make you feel really uncomfortable and make it feel super eerie. So here are the main chords. As you can see, it's actually quite fast-paced for a 3-time song, and I used the synths just to build more of an atmosphere. I also believe that the point of the fast pace was just to build the tension and so that you could feel the pressure that the news reporter was feeling. With the main melody, I had a main melody and then I had a response. So this was the main melody. And as you can see, it's played super lightly, super quietly, it's super high up, so it's really contrasting to the really loud, low, and dark chords that are playing behind it. And to contrast the melody, I used a chromatic scale downwards. I believe that the use of the chromatic descending sequence is in order to make the person feel like there's something behind them, and it's meant to make it feel super eerie and make the listener feel uncomfortable when they're watching the scene, like someone's approaching them, which in this scene they are. In order to build the tension even further, as it gets closer to the actual murder, I use a crescendo on the violins in order to kind of spook the audience. That crescendo is meant to give a feeling that someone is approaching from behind you, and it's meant to make you feel super on edge and super uncomfortable. I thought the collaboration process was incredibly successful, and the film accompanied by the backing track feels very natural. As I'm already quite close with my collaboration partner, the process was incredibly easy, and it felt very easy to communicate any issues we had with the piece because of it. Through this project, I learned the importance of constant communication and the importance of honesty when collaborating in order to get the optimal quality in your projects. Because if you aren't honest with your partner, then you're not going to get the product that you desire overall. I think I created the themes of pressure, anger, and sadness effectively through the music I created. However, one thing I would work on is breaking down the structure of where songs would fit in the movie, primarily due to the fact that we had made a fourth piece I created, which was to be used in the final murder scene. But we went against it in the end, as we thought that it was too aggressive and out of character for the main person to kill him out of passion, because it was actually out of the pressure of trying to create the story. And so we went with a much more sad piece of music and slow piece of music instead, to show his disappointment in himself when he finally did kill him.
Good morning, I'm Jimmy Jackson for Channel 6 News. We have some tragic news coming out of Peterton City this morning. Patrick Peterson was found dead in his home earlier. Police have been on the scene for 2 hours now. The crime scene report indicates that Patrick was shot in the chest. We convey our sincerest condolences to his family, his friends, and the community that loved him so.